Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to First Person, the show where we meet the most interesting people in IT and learn from them what makes them tick by focusing only on their firsts. I'm your host, Matt Egan, asking you to enjoy, like, and subscribe wherever you find us. And if you're an interesting person in IT, let us know. You might be the next first person. The next voice you hear will be today's guest. He is Daniel Avancini. Daniel is Chief Data Officer at Indicium, someone who helps companies build their modern analytics stack using cutting edge tools and processes for data lake, data warehousing, data governance, and advanced analytics. Daniel is, let me tell you, definitely one of the most interesting people in IT, and we are delighted to have him as a guest here on First Person. So, Daniel, welcome. And first up, what's the first thing people should know about you?
Okay. Well, I'm not that interesting for. I think that's
We'll find out.
that's the first thing. Well, I think I'm a very curious person, so I think when you talk to me about almost anything, I'll try to understand better what is that and look into information. So I work and we work in the information industry, right? So that's something I always loved to really understand deeply different subjects. And so I think this is probably the biggest trace of Daniel, right? Of being very curious. And I think that helped a lot when in my line of work.
Yeah.
But I think that if you ask my friends and my family, my wife, they're probably going to say the same.
Same thing. Very curious. It's interesting, actually, Daniel, because that is, we do a lot of these interviews, and that is really a trait of very successful people in our industry. I think, like, because to your point, we're in a knowledge industry, so if you're not curious, you're probably doing it wrong, I guess. So I'm gonna pique our own curiosity now, and we're going to move to our section that we call First Things First, and this is where we get to know about our guest by understanding some of their first time. So, Daniel, if you wouldn't mind, please tell us something about your first job in this industry, your first job in IT.
Yeah, sure. Well, data is kind of. I'm not from IT originally, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
from. I'm an my major is in economics,
Uh-huh.
and I also have a master's degree in economics. So I'm came from the other side of the spectrum, more on the business side, more on the
Yeah.
statistics side, which is pretty common for data. So data is kind of the mix of between data between IT and other sciences like statistics or economics. So I came from economics. I had a good experience with coding for statistical analysis and modeling. So it's a different
Right.
background, but it's
Yeah.
also technical. And my first, actually, I think my first job in IT was when I was working for a SaaS company doing the implementation work. So yeah, I wasn't coding anything, but I was like in a working IT with this SaaS. Uh, it's an app for sales for like a CRM type
Yeah.
of
Yeah. Yeah.
SaaS
Yeah. Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's interesting. And one of the things that I find interesting is the number of successful people in IT who come from different backgrounds. And it is that
yeah,
kind of curiosity and desire to learn that helps them progress. But also, actually, the number of people who come from other sciences, like maths, we've had lots of physicists. I
mm,
think it probably gives you a good grounding to help with the technical issues, like if you've got that kind of more fundamental scientific background. That's just a pet theory. But I guess so. Having come in that way, what was the first time when you thought, okay, this is the industry for me. This is my path now to work in this space.
yeah. It actually, I don't think there was like a specific event. I was
Mhm.
just started. So after a while, I started doing some startup, trying to open a startup in this industry. So when you are opening something, you kind of
Yeah.
have to do everything. So
Yeah.
so so I start doing just like small coding, a lot of like I say from business side, like
Yeah.
Excel automation, like doing some spreadsheet automation, then automating emails, and that's coding, right? So I start coding our own website just a little bit, and that's when I came more in close contact with traditional coding, not let's say statistical. So
Hmm.
more like JavaScript or this Python or the like more common languages. And after we started in Indicium, uh, we of course we are a data consulting company. At first we did more let's say the analysis. So I'll still be using a lot of this analysis, uh, uh, code for analysis, for business analysis, which is still what I did from the start. But after the company grew, we started working with more, let's say, ETL work or more like advanced databases. And then I started learning a lot about databases, about data
Mhm.
warehousing, how to do like ETL code. And then I became more, let's say, closer to a typical IT
Yeah,
professional. Of
yeah,
course, now I don't do that anymore. Like we have a team for that, but on the
yeah.
beginning of the company, I did quite a bit of that.
So you've come from, I mean, I think, we used to say in journalism, like the journalists who understand the business, tend to succeed better than the best journalists, if you know what I mean, because you understand how to fit your skills. And I guess that must be true here, right? If you're able to develop sufficient technical skills, the fact that you understand both your own business's needs and the needs of your customers, who are also businesses in their own right, like that must have helped you kind of succeed and prosper, would you say?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And another
Yeah,
thing that it helps a lot, I think, because what we do here, a lot of the work we do with our clients, it's to habilitate or to help clients work better with data. And
yeah,
when we do that, when we say that help the clients, it's usually help their non-technical teams to
yeah,
work with data.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, 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 yeah,
their business analysts, etc.
yeah,
So since most of our team, especially myself and a lot of my team, are not from IT,
yeah,
we kind of understand. We have a more empathic,
yeah,
let's say, way
yeah,
of seeing the non-technical business users that used to be us maybe a couple of years ago.
yeah,
Uh, like, okay, this is too technical. I can kind of relate to them when
yeah,
maybe when it's a, let's say, highly technical IT company, it's harder. It's harder.
yeah,
It becomes too technical. We
yeah.
try to
No, for
avoid that.
Yeah, for sure. That's why they call them solutions, right? It's not about the technology being perfect and doing something
Yes.
amazingly well. It's about the staff being able to help to be helped to operate with the technology that you're developing for them. And what's interesting about you, Daniel, one of many things that's interesting about you is that you're a self starter. You've kind of built this thing yourself. One of the questions we always ask is tell us about a first great boss. But I wonder if in your career you've had bosses who have really helped you, or is it been colleagues and peers or mentors like along the way? Have there been people who've helped inspire you and help you grow professionally?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like I had a couple of bosses which were good. Uh, we weren't they weren't very long experiences, right? Because we started a company 8 years ago. Uh, I did a couple, let's say, startups, like failed startups before that.
Yeah.
So I didn't have as many bosses, but I can relate to, let's say, some university professors I had, some
Right.
teachers that
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they influenced me a lot. So let's say uh, my thesis. I don't remember the English word for this, but my thesis coordinator or something at the
Yeah.
university that really helped me think, like how to bring the ideas and the logic that you need to like bring ideas into paper
Hmm.
and question your assumptions. And a lot of that I learned at the university, at academia. It's something that I think I try to bring that to the
Yeah.
business context a lot. So always try to see the logic between that what
Yeah.
we do and the assumptions, if they make sense. And of course, like I had a lot of colleagues, peers, or even employees, even people there I lead.
Yeah.
That you can learn a lot from a lot of people.
100%.
Like, and
Yeah.
so I wouldn't say there's this one specific person, but
Yeah.
I've learned, and like I said, I'm curious and I try to absorb a lot of
Yeah.
what people do. So I've tried to absorb a lot of all these people, and I think all of them collectively impacted how I am today and how I
Yeah.
work.
I mean, it's a really insightful answer because I think that point, the last point, is really important. Like learning continually from the people that you're around, but also, taking that academic skill set and applying it to the business world. Like like I often hear, very few organizations lack ideas, right? Like ideas, they're important, but they exist. But getting from idea to execution of a solution is often a huge challenge within organizations. And what you talked about there, like really kind of speaks to being able to do that. And I wonder if, because your career path's not the standard career path, right? You haven't stayed with a company, moved to a different company to move up, and continually moved up. Like, I'm interested in that, like, and this curiosity theme plays out again, right? But what do you think it was that drove you? What made you first think not to take the next step on the corporate ladder, but to go and start your own thing and try your own thing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I can come before that, before I went to graduate school. So
Yeah.
when I was finishing my undergrad studies, uh, I always tried, and I think this we still do it as a company, like kind of hedge your
Yeah.
chances.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I was in my last year, so I was studying for the graduate school exam. So we had that. We needed there's an exam so you can go to graduate school. And at the same time, I was applying for trainee programs for corporations. And actually, I got approved for a couple of trainee programs and also for the graduate school. So at that time,
Right.
I was like, where should I go? Should I go to work at enterprise career, like a typical enterprise career, or do the graduate school, the master's? And at that time, what I thought is, well, if I go to master's right now, it's only 2 years. Then I have 50 years to go back to corporate
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
corporate work.
Yeah.
And if I go to corporate work, I'll probably never stop to do the master's. So I think like this is
Yeah.
something that is important for my maybe my learning, my competences, my skills that could help me in other stuff. So I went for the graduate school. After the graduate school, I thought of doing the PhD. Uh, didn't at that time. I was no. Let me try to work a little bit. Like so, I did the opposite. Like let's
Yeah.
work a little bit of, you know, different stuff. So I did some lecturing at university also. Um, then, like I said, work for this IT SaaS tool, try to open a few startups, and then it's like kind of like doing stuff like
Yeah.
when you're young you have less, okay, you don't have kids,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
you could just like try different stuff. And I think
Yeah.
everything you try, when you're doing, like if you're learning something, you shouldn't be really worried about the success at that time. So of course you need the financial support, and like you need to
Yeah.
understand how you do that. But what I always thought of is really like everything I try to do, everything you do, it has to like go in the right direction.
Hmm.
It goes a little bit on the right direction, maybe it's not that road. It's not you won't be going straight like, I don't know, 100 miles that way, but it's taking you like maybe a couple of miles in the right direction. Then there's another thing that takes you a couple of miles in the right direction,
Yeah.
because the thing is sometimes you don't know the right direction, right?
Yeah.
That's what I feel like. So I
Yeah.
tried a few times all these different approaches,
Yeah.
and when we started in Decium, I was like much more ready because I had tried it. Like I knew a little bit about entrepreneurship because I had opened a few startups. I worked in the different company. I knew how, let's say, software companies work. I knew a little bit of sales because I had tried to sell. Sold some stuff at the other companies. So so you kind of like join all these skills together, and it makes you a better professional. And it's when you're opening a company, I think it's like something I could probably tell other people that are trying right now or want to do that. It's like you need to have a very broad range of skills
Hmm.
when you're opening a startup, because you can't just
Yeah.
hire 25 experienced
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
when you're starting. So you need to be a little bit of a salesperson, a
Yeah.
little bit of a HR person. So I think like having all these different experiences is very important when you want to
Yeah.
open your own company.
No, it's amazing. I mean, and it speaks to, there's a lot to pick out of there, Daniel, but like it definitely speaks to this idea of curiosity. But I think there's a lot of wisdom in this idea of, particularly when you're able, when you're young, when you have the privilege of being able to sort of fail, frankly, like trying to get as many different experiences as possible will make you that much more rounded individual. And but also it does seem to me like you've always had a sense, even if you don't know exactly where you're going, you know what direction you want to move in, and I think that's really important as well. But it also brings us up to section two, which we call first fails, because we're not only here for the good stuff, we do learn more from our mistakes, which you've already spoken to, Daniel. So forgive me for this, but I am really interested. What's the first big mistake you think of when I ask you, you know, what mistakes you've made?
Uh, yeah, it's a good question. I can talk about startups failing because
Yeah.
it's. But I
Well,
wouldn't
they
say
do.
it's a mistake though. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say
Yeah.
it's a mistake. I
Yeah.
wouldn't qualify as a mistake. I think
Agreed.
it would have been a mistake if we pursued something that
Yeah.
didn't have a future. So I
Yeah.
think this is also learning for when you're doing startups. So we opened. I had a when virtual reality came up, was a hype like 10 years ago. So we opened a virtual reality startup. We actually got some like a little bit of funding. Went to this accelerator program, and when we started doing the accelerator program, we that's when we like quickly realized that maybe that wasn't the next thing. Like at least
Right.
at that time, maybe we'll be in the future. But
Maybe it's been around a few times, so, so I'm never sure.
yeah,
But
but like in a couple of so we were working for in this like for maybe I don't know 6 months or something like maybe longer. But okay, we already had a couple of clients, but when we went to this program, we did, let's say, a deeper product market fit analysis. I like all this like
yeah,
typical startup, lean startup stuff. And when we quickly realized that maybe this is not the best thing. So we just started pivoting. Like let's try not something else. We try to use some ideas we had and the team we had to find something that was more interesting as a company. And at that time, we kind of like we didn't really find something,
right.
and we just and I think that was like we had maybe 5 6 weeks in this accelerator program, and by the end of the program, we pretty much like we started with a company, we left without a company. Like we left it like, yeah, guys, maybe this is not gonna work. But at the same time, so it's a fail as a company. But I think, like I said, I learned a lot about this. I think everyone learned on their team, and I'm still a lot of the learnings I'm still using right now, like 10 years ago, 10 years
Yeah,
after. So
no, definitely. That to me sounds like, you know, it's like that thing of, you know, you don't fire the person who's made $1 million mistake because you paid $1 million to learn what 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 they did, right? And that to me, if you know, if it's 5 or 6 weeks, that's a big win, right? That you were able to decide this isn't the right thing and we need to move in a different direction. Um, I think one of the things about curiosity is, and it sound that answer just speaks to this, right? You have to be ready to understand that what you thought before might not be right. You have to be ready to learn, right, and challenge your own presumptions. And I wonder if can you think of a first time when you realized something that you thought you knew might actually be wrong? You know, something challenged your previous understanding or beliefs.
yeah, well, I think I think that happens all the time. Like when
Yeah.
in the company, I trying to remember one specific case, but I think like we had I don't know. Sometimes when you're engaging clients, especially at the beginning of the company, we learn a lot with kind of our mistakes. Some projects didn't go as well as expected, you know,
Hmm.
and sometimes we thought that it was maybe the client's fault or maybe someone else's fault. And sometimes we learn a lot from like really experienced clients. Like I said, like who do you learn from? Sometimes we learn from our clients because a lot of the clients, sometimes we are working with enterprise companies. These people are there for like 30, 40 years. And we had one specific situation actually when we were very young as a company that we were like prospected by this huge multinational company that they were like they wanted to improve their data teams and they start talking to us, and we had to do presentations for their like senior leadership, VPs, C levels. And I think that we didn't go through, and I think it's kind of a fail and it's a learning because I think we learned a lot. And I think on
Yeah.
that time I don't think we were ready. And I think
Right.
we the feedbacks we got from this company were a bit heavy for us. I think they're like strong feedbacks, and I
Yeah,
think they were feedbacks that we worked after. Excuse
yeah,
me. So I think we weren't ready at that time. We thought we were probably more ready,
yeah,
but then we realized like we still had a long way to grow as a company, as managers, as
yeah.
professionals. So I think answering your question, I think that was a good experience. So we had like a board. It's almost like the apprenticeship, right? So there was like a board of people, and it was like, you know,
But that's
you almost.
that's so important. You would pay a consultant a lot of money to give you that feedback, right?
Yes,
Yeah, and
yes,
customers always have a say. Like as a technology journalist over many years, I used to be a consumer technology journalist, and the number of times you would see someone present a product like that the technology was great and it worked, but it wasn't a solution for the customer,
yeah,
right? And because
yeah,
the customer has a say. So how fortunate to have a customer who will give you that feedback, because feedback's a gift and that's going to help you develop. But I will say, Daniel, for you, you need to be open to receiving that feedback, and,
yeah.
and, and that again speaks to this theme of curiosity. It's really interesting. But we will move on now to section 3, which we call quick fire firsts. This is because
Okay.
we want to get to know you beyond your professional status and veneer. And we find out about the real person by using our patented random question generator. So, Daniel, could you please pick a number between 1 and 13?
Okay. 7.
Number 7. Let's have a look on the random generator. Number 7. This is hit or miss, right? It's okay if you haven't got an answer for it. But have you ever had a pet, Daniel? And if so, what was your first pet that you can remember having?
A pet.
Yeah.
Yes, I actually have two cats. I
There
have
we
two
go. You're a cat
cats.
guy. Yeah.
I'm a cat. Yeah, I'm also a dog guy, but now I'm a cat guy right now.
It's a lot easier.
My first pet, we had a small turtle when I
Oh,
was a
wow.
kid. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure that was the first. Yes.
Yeah. That is not an answer I was expecting, and not an answer you would typically get in suburban London. Maybe maybe it's more frequent in Brazil. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It wasn't, but it was like in aquarium stuff. It was.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't all in the open. Well,
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of a trend on the '90s. I don't know. I remember
It
more
was a
people
trend in
having
the
turtles.
90s because of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There was a whole,
Yeah, maybe.
whole
Yeah,
thing.
maybe.
Yeah.
Makes
Interesting.
sense.
I actually in my house have a bearded dragon lizard that lives in
Okay.
Bavarian. It was a gift to me from my children on Father's Day. It was Father's Day yesterday, but this was 2 years ago.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Let me tell you, as a gift for a father, an animal you have to feed live insects every day in a vivarium that I had to build, that has to be connected and lit and heated for 12 hours a day in a time of high energy costs. It's possibly not the best gift, but you grow to love your animals, don't you? Okay, let's think of. Can you think of another number between 1 and 13, and let's see if we can hit something equally interesting.
5.
Number 5. Oh, again, this is kind of a hit or miss one, but let's see what we get. Can you think of the first sporting event that you attended? Did you go to a soccer match, or can you think of anything along
Uh,
those lines?
First one. I would say a soccer match.
Yeah,
Um, well, I'm a Corinthians fan in Brazil.
this is what I was
Um,
after.
yeah, I'm a Corinthians fan, but I didn't live in São Paulo where Corinthians play, so
Yeah,
they played some away matches where I lived against the local club, and I remember going there with my friend's dad, which was also Corinthians fan, so he would bring all the kids to
cool.
this to the games. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't know, it's probably like 6 or
It's a
7.
pretty exciting
So
moment. Like you see that first green pitch and like the excitement of seeing these guys you've
yes,
seen on TV. Although for a 6-year-old, it's quite a long thing to watch, right? And 90-minute football match. And the first time I went
yeah,
to watch soccer was to watch my team, Leeds United, and I was a little
okay,
bit younger than that. I was 4 or 5, and Leeds scored in the first couple of minutes, and I cried my eyes out because it was too loud. And it's kind of been downhill ever since then. But that's a
yeah.
good formative experience, I think. Well, thank you, Daniel. It was nice getting to know you a little bit more, and that brings us to section 4, our first and final thoughts. And I'm excited to ask you because I think you've got some really good insights here. But what would be the first piece of advice you would give to someone who is just starting out today?
Yeah. Um, I think today is it's a hard time to start because of
Yeah,
AI.
yeah,
And
yeah, for
I'm
sure.
working with AI, so I know how strong it is. Uh, I think you really need to understand what makes you different from everyone
Hmm.
else, and especially from technology. You can't be just one more one more person that, oh, I do everything as good as anyone else, because
Yeah,
maybe you can be replaced by AI or by someone else. So you have to understand what are your qualities, what you're good at, and try to use that
yeah,
as a lever for like improve the other skills that you need. Right? It's not
yeah,
maybe you can't focus like, oh, I like to write a lot. But, okay, but you are working with IT. How can you use your writing
yeah,
as a better IT professional? I don't know. Maybe you're gonna use that writing skills to build better sales pitches. I don't know, but you have to understand how what you like to do. It also connects to what you need to do.
yeah,
And I think if you're doing what you like, it's much easier, and you definitely find something that makes you different from everyone else. So it is also
yeah.
something that is important.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot in journalism, right? Like if an AI can do it, it will. Um, so like we have to let go of things. And I started out making print magazines, and all the skills I had building those went away.
Yeah,
It just went away, kind of thing. But from a journalism perspective, your job is to generate insights from talking to people, right? And that can't currently be done by an AI because it requires a human to find kind of the insight. And I'm sure the same is true in technology and business, right? Like if an AI can do it, it's going to. But what is the value you can bring? And the other piece of advice in there, which I think is really great, is what's your passion, what you like doing, what are you really good at, and how do you fit that to the
yeah,
task in hand, kind of thing. Daniel, if you're, I think I might know the answer because I suspect it's your organisation, right? But you know, what's the first project or achievement you would want to tell people about? What's Daniel's masterpiece?
yeah. Definitely, I think our company right now is what I'm working for the past almost 10 years. We're growing really fast. We're almost 500 people. So I think, but not only the company in terms of money or revenue, but I think what makes me more proud is really the team, the people that we,
Sure.
most of our like leaders, most of the people that are on our leadership team or our best employees, they've started with us when they were really young, and so I know them since they were, let's say, an intern, and now they are like leading projects with major corporations. So I think it makes us very proud. So we can see how everyone grew as professionals with the company, of course. But so I think this people aspect of having a company, especially in the services industry that we work. So there's a lot of people working for us. I think this is the biggest achievement that we have, like really building a culture. I know, like knowing that people that work there like to work there, and they grow as persons, they learn a lot. So I think this is definitely the biggest achievement.
Yeah. No, and it speaks volumes, and also it's a hedge against the whole AI piece, right?
Yeah,
Like if you've got the right people and they're enthusiastic and they're pulling in the right direction because they like what they do and who they work with, right? That is probably the future of the knowledge industry, is like supported by AI tools. Really, really interesting and cool answer, I think, Daniel. So look, I'm going to come to our final question, which is our only non-first question. Okay. Taking all of the above, thinking that the people watching this are definitely curious people who want to be involved in IT and business. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
yeah. I think I'll come back to the AI piece. I think
Hmm.
it's a very challenging time for everyone, especially people that are, let's say, at university right now,
Yeah, yeah,
and
for
they
sure.
are like questioning you, like, man, I'm just studying for to be a journalist or an economist or a designer, a marketing professional, and like, am I gonna work? Will I have a work something somewhere to work in a couple of years because of AI? And I definitely think that the answer is yes. There will be a lot of work for most people, but like you said, like there was printing magazine, then there was digital magazines, then there's blogging, then there's no blogging, there's social media. Like technology changes, but I think the human aspirations, what people like, what people do, what people consume, it doesn't change that quickly. It's something that takes thousands of years. People are still like the kind of the same things, and they do the same things. So you need really to focus on those things, like, and see how AI or how technology in general will help you get there
Yeah.
and adapt. Like, people need to adapt.
Yeah.
There's always going to be work. I think there's going to be a lot of work for everything that is people related, because AI won't do that.
Yeah.
But sometimes, if it's a very replaceable thing, it's just like something that people do because they have to do, not because they want to do. This is what
Yeah.
AI will replace first. Like, because I don't
100%.
want to write this 50 pages report every
Yeah.
week. I'll leave AI to do that. But I want to do the analysis. I want to do, like, what are the insights. I want to have a meeting with all my leaders and understand, like, what are these insights? How can we act on those insights?
Yeah.
So you need to learn how to process insights and think about the actions, and not just doing the reports. So
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of opportunities, but people need to adapt. They will have
Yeah.
to understand that there will be a lot and of course it will change. A lot of the work will change, and just people have to understand that.
Yeah, and that's hard, right? And that is hard. Change is hard, but like I can't remember which technology vendor it is, but there is a technology vendor where they have a spade up on the wall, and the point is, people don't dig big holes with spades anymore, right? They use diggers, but spades still exist. So, like, the point is, the mission. We always talk about this. The mission stays the same. Strategies change, tactics change all the time, right? But the mission is still, to your point, to to engage human beings with things they like and to find solutions for problems. And if AI can do it, it will, but it will never replace the ingenuity of a human being to find those solutions. Amazing. My thanks to Daniel Avancini, and thanks to you for watching or listening to First Person, the show where we meet the most interesting people in IT and learn from them what makes them tick by focusing on their first. I have been your host, Matt Egan, asking you to enjoy, like, and subscribe wherever you find us. And if you're an interesting person in IT, let us know. You might be the next First Person. But I have to leave the final word and my thanks to Daniel Avancini. So thank you, Daniel, and goodbye.